Revolutionary greetings, comrades. We know that most of you are preparing to travel as it is the eve of the Easter weekend. We wish the Christian community a blessed Easter weekend. Those that are traveling, please be safe on the roads. We do not want you to be involved in accidents. Let's discuss the question of elections in Zimbabwe. We as the opposition, we have disarmed the majority of Zimbabweans by saying that an election is not the solution in Zimbabwe. This disempowers the voting people, because those that are supposed to be voting are then told that an election does not work. And if we are saying an election does not work, we do not come up with an alternative strategy or an alternative formula that will work. Forget about a war in Zimbabwe. A war will not resolve anything. In fact, it will drag for more than a decade. Loss of lives, loss of property. At the end, negotiations will have to happen. So the war will not be the solution in Zimbabwe. Mass action is indeed a tool to force the regime to implement electoral reform. It is the tool that is in our disposal. But mass action on its own cannot drive out a regime in Zimbabwe. As we said in the last video, unless the military does what it did in 2017. But how does an election work? Or put it differently, why am I saying that an election cannot be rigged on election day? Just need to explain this process so that you don't spend most of your time. Firstly, in 2023, there were over 12,370 polling stations across the country. We do not have the percentage of polling stations that did not have polling agents from the opposition and progressive civil society. What happens in a polling station in terms of the Zimbabwean Electoral Act? Ballot boxes arrive, say, a day before voting starts. When ballot boxes arrive, all political parties that are participating in an election will have registered their polling agents. Right? Before the election, every political party will mobilize and train its election agents on what is expected of them on the election day. I've participated in that. I'm talking about something that I've done practical. I've been part of the people that were training polling agents. Right? So, each party will train as its own resources its polling agents. When a party will be allowed, depending on ZEC, about 3 or so polling agents. One will be inside the polling station 2 will be outside because the other one is a reliever. So by the time the polling material or election material arrive at a polling station, polling agents will be present in the polling station. In the morning, when all of us wake up in the morning to go and queue to cast our votes, the ballot box, which is transparent, yabe glass ballot box leliyana, kuyabe ngaso cardboard evalota ubona into efakwe phakathi. It will be transparent, a glass like. So the polling box is inspected by everyone, and everyone will confirm that, look, there's nothing inside. If indeed it is a transparent box. If it is not a transparent box, every polling agent will inspect. After inspecting, before any ballot paper is cast, they then sign the form that there was nothing inside the polling voting box. Then, because the officials from ZEC will be having a voters roll of people that are supposed to be voting in that particular polling station. Say voting starts, say, at 7 a.m. People then come in. As you come inside the polling station, you inspect your name. Once you have seen that your name is there, they tick. You show them you identify yourself in the form of your ID or driver's license, passport, whatever is allowed. Right. You then get given a ballot paper because your name is there. I can't remember what comes first, the where you mark. I think at the end where you have this mark that you have cast your vote, right? So you have inspected the voters roll. Your name is there. You are given a ballot paper. You go to that booth, voting booth. Remember, polling agents of all political parties are inside. They are watching you. You cast your vote. When you cast your vote, you then deposit it in the box. Everyone is watching when you are depositing it. Remember, in the beginning, before any voter went inside the polling station, the polling agents inspected the polling boxes and assigned that there is no material inside. Right? Now people vote the whole day. Say now in the evening, say the polling station closes at 7 p.m. The box is then sealed in the presence of polling agents for them to take a break. Taking a break does not mean that they go outside and leave the boxes unattended. No. Right? They seal off and they say that the polling has closed. In the box does not leave that tab where it is put. It doesn't. Polling agents do not leave. They are inside. They just take a break. They sit there watching the box. Right? Then maybe after 30 minutes or so, they then open the box in the presence of everyone. Then they empty the box. Counting begins in the presence of everyone. Counting it begins. Everyone is happy. Then there is a form that each polling agent then signs that in this polling station 1,000 people cast their ballots. Party A received so many, Party B, Party C, Party E, depending on how many parties are contesting. They complete the form where they put the election results. They enter the election results in a form. Every polling agent is present. They put their signature to say, this is correct. Right. Once everyone has signed, the polling agent has signed the results inside the polling station, it is then that the result sheet, paper lalama result, is then plugged outside the polling station. To say, in this polling station at Njube High School, right? These are the results. They are placed outside for everyone to see. It is then that party agents screenshot or take a photo of that what is plugged outside, election result plugged outside. Then they transmit to their constituency command center. They have the forms from that particular constituency. Every party that is participating will be having those forms. It is then at the constituency command center, assuming in an urban constituency, there are about, say, 5 polling stations, right? So results of all 5 polling stations, they then come to the command. Because remember, in each polling station, results are outside. And every polling agent has the results. Before the results are even communicated to the constituency command center, my party will know that it has won or it has lost, because the polling agent will have communicated immediately to us that in Njube primary we were number 2, right? In Mpopoma we were number 1, because it is the polling agent of my party that is communicating. While in terms of ZEC, the results are sent to the constituency command center. The party, my party, that is participating will also have its district command center or constituency command center, where results are sent to us, the party. Before any announcement is made, or before even 11 p.m., if the polling station closes at 7 p.m., before 10 p.m. or 9 p.m., we will know that we have won or lost the election in a particular constituency, because the agents are there. In my rural constituency, Unumzingwan, I think we had more polling stations because it's a huge constituency. What I discovered, where we had a serious problem in 2013 when I was an MP candidate, we had the polling agents in what is called the communal lands. Let me put it this way. My rural constituency is divided into 3. The first area is called a communal land, Emakhaya. The second one is peri-urban, or how minus Godini Aban, right? The third is the farming community, where people were resettled. So my party was able, in 2013 when I was a candidate, to deploy local people living in that, around that polling station, in communal and peri-urban as election agents. But we struck it to deploy, to recruit polling agents in farming communities. were now to recruit people, say from Havana and Escondida, if you are familiar with the geography of that area, to go and be pulling agents around Falcon College in the farming communities, where they are not even known. Right? And in some cases, because now you have to deploy people who are not from that particular ward, you need transport. And what did this do? It meant that some polling stations, we did not have polling agents. We did not even get results from those polling stations in the farming communities because we did not have polling agents who were to depend on ZEC to tell us how people voted in that particular polling station. This is where then rigging happens. Because if around Ntabeni Mnyama, not Ntabeni Mnyama, but Ntabeni and around Falcon College, that area, farming community towards Harare Road, right, you have, say, 7 polling stations. There are no polling agents from my part, as was the case in 2013. You now have to believe what ZEC tells you. Because you are not there, you are not represented. That's where then rigging happens. But in a polling station, at Mbizingwe Primary School, at Mawabeni Primary School, where it was a polling station, or Mawabeni Clinic, or Esbomvu Clinic, Mzinyati Clinic, no rigging happened. Because the local party members around Esbomvu were there. From the previous day when the ballot boxes arrived, up to until the signing of the results. So rigging did not happen because party agents were there. But in farming communities where we were not represented, because we did not have party structures, you know what will happen. Even if we say 300 people voted there, because now ZANU-PF, they will be losing in communal areas. Now, in farming communities, their number will certainly increase because they are pulling agents in communal areas. They will be telling them that, look, here we lost, here we lost, here we lost. Then they make the numbers. If, say, there were 200 people that cast a vote in a particular polling station, in a farming community, they will then say 2,000 people cast the votes. You can't dispute that because you are not there. Once that happens, we then say elections are rigged. Indeed, the elections will be rigged because we are not there. Why are we not there? Because we do not have political structures. We only remembered to go to those areas towards an election, right? So what, as I'm concluding, I'm simply saying, on election day, if there are polling agents in all polling stations, they will not rig the elections. In 2023, there were about 12,370 polling stations. Let's assume that the opposition had polling agents in 9,000 plus polling stations, right? And the opposition was leading. Let's simply say 60%, 40%. But in the remaining polling stations, the opposition is not there. Then the ZANU polling agents, they will simply then add more numbers, cast more votes, because the opposition is not there. And then the outcome of an election will say ZANU-PF presidential candidate won by 50.8% of the vote or 52% of the vote. You can't argue. You will say, because we won in Bare, we should have won in Kutu. And then the court will say, produce V11 forms, evidence to support your claim, because the court deals with facts. Produce evidence. you can't produce the V11s because you were not there, you were not represented. That's where the problem is. So what I'm simply saying is, on election day, we get rigged because we'll not be having polling agents. But if we have polling agents, we cannot be rigged. The only other rigging that can be done then before election, which we'll discuss, is to prevent people from voting, set up roadblocks as they used to do just before the election, withdraw people's IDs so that young people cannot vote, or refuse the opposition to hold campaign rallies or to do door-to-door. It contributes to a rigging of an election, right? But on the election day itself, it will not happen if we are there, because they will not carry the boxes and go and count them in another place. Before the 2013, before 2008, if I'm not mistaken, we will vote in my primary school. Boxes would be loaded in a police vehicle, straight to Escotini to be counted. And you can imagine what happens. I think it's about 30 kilometers or so transporting the vote in a rural area, driving dusty road. You can imagine what happens with those boxes between the polling station and the command center in Escotini, where the boxes will have to be then counted. Right. Naturally, some boxes will be tampered with along the way, or new boxes will be loaded into the vehicle. Right. But this time around, since 2013, election happens at a polling station. Voting happens at a polling station. Counting happens there without transporting boxes. Results are posted outside. You then transport boxes which will not be counted just for safekeeping, but the results are already known. Please, let's continue having this discussion, because as I'm concluding now, the mistake that we make as the opposition is that we win. We are voting at Lopengula Hall. We get high numbers. And then we think that someone in rural Beitbridge is voting like we are voting in Lopengula. That is not the case. And in any case, we will not be having polling agents in a rural Beitbridge constituency. When we win in Lopengula, we think that we have also won in Beitbridge, but we have no evidence that we won in Beitbridge because we do not have polling agents in Manama. We would not be having polling agents. So the key is that if we are to defeat ZANU-PF in an election, one of the things we must do is to ensure that at the very minimum, we have 3 polling agents in every polling station. Please, comrades, let's continue to discuss. Otherwise, Amandla.